Hey friends, I we're moving back into our house today. It's a big day. Woke up in the hotel this morning, and today we live back at home. It's a Christmas miracle. So it's really feeling good to kind of, ironically, I spent the entire day out and about, but we're sleeping here tonight and we're going to be settling in over the next 24 hours. So that feels really good. What came up today I commuted up to Santa Fe today to take the car in for service and teach a lesson. And I had I listened to the end of Chögyam Trungpa's book. I listened to the end finally after it's probably been a month since I listened to it. The Sacred Path of the Warrior. And there's no way I can encapsulate all of what it was about. The last hour of the Audible book that I heard, and it was like every time I listen to it, I feel like I should just go back and take a note on every single thing in the book. But one thing kind of jumped out at me, partly because it had already been on my mind over the past few days and few weeks, really. I had a thought a week or two ago in meditation, and I was like, oh, I'd like to unpack this. But then I never got around to it, but I kind of came back today. And basically I was just noticing, in inner work, when we are, what Chögyam Trungpa would call the path of the warrior, the work of the warrior. There's a beautiful image today where he talked about mother energy and father energy, and mother energy being gentleness and father energy being fearlessness. And basically these are two energies that we find activated within ourselves and that we all have access to. Men and women have equal access to each of these energies, and they naturally activate when we come into this place of egolessness, when we come into a place of recognizing the inherent emptiness of existence, the emptiness that there is no I here, there is no ego here. I think I spoke on this post a couple weeks ago about something Trungpa said about how cowardice is basically taking the condition of unconditionality, taking the condition of no reference points, emptiness, and filling it up with scary stuff, filling it up with threats to our existence. And as opposed to the way of courage, which is to just surrender to that emptiness. Know that emptiness is ultimately who we are. And then there's no threat. There's nothing. There's no ego to dissolve. There's nothing to be under threat, because there's nothing there. Consciousness is this inherently empty. It's this inherent empty fullness. And when we really connect with that, when we let that dissolution happen, which he talks in sort of like beautiful detail towards the end of the book, he talks about. He doesn't describe how that works, because that's not really possible, but he gives a really beautiful description of various signposts along the way and various aspects of what that practice looks like. But it basically, when we successfully do that, these two energies just they instantly and effortlessly arise within us. Gentleness, real human gentleness, a kind of sensitivity to everything and everyone, no harshness, no imposition of, no violation of anyone else's space or state, and fearlessness, no fear, no doubt. It's like this was another thing that sort of got unpacked a little bit in a portion of what Trungpa talked about today. It was a let me see if I can get this right. He was basically describing what it looks like when we're living from that state of total fearlessness. And it's basically, the way he describes it is we're acting with no capacity for doubt. The challenge and the interest. He talks about, like, when something presents itself, when a problem presents itself, the challenge of the problem and the interest in the solution arise at the same time. There's no moment of, oh, there's a barrier here, there's an obstacle here, where we just feel the obstacle. Because, of course, the way around any obstacle, the way through any barrier is curiosity. This is why in my piano course I talk about discovery mode. Every mistake is a discovery, because literally curiosity dissolves the barriers. It's the thing that curiosity is the thing that the universe is trying to provoke when it gives us an obstacle. The universe is attempting to provoke our curiosity. It's attempting to get us to become interested in the nature of reality on whatever minute, potentially sort of mundane seeming level that may be taking place. That's the ultimate purpose. We have obstacles so that we take an interest in the universe. And Trungpa talks about, like, in this state of warriorship, of ego, when there's no ego in the way, the obstacle and the curiosity arise in the same moment. And so there's no conflict. There's a kind of instant and very symbiotic evolution that takes place there. And I just loved hearing that image. I loved hearing that description. I loved the simplicity of the way that he talks about these stages of growth, and where we how it looks as this unfolds. And this is where it came back to a thought that I had a week or two ago, because I woke up and I was meditating one morning and I was noticing that there was it's like there was something in my psyche that was like a kind of arrogance. It was like a kind of, like a hubris, or I get it. It was like, that's how it was kind of framed to that's how my mind was framing it to myself. I get it. I get this spiritual practice stuff. And as I saw that arise, I was like, oh God, like, that is the ultimate barrier. Because as soon as we think that, we're no longer curious. As soon as we think, I get it, we no longer approach the obstacle with the same curiosity. Now we're going to approach the obstacle with a preconceived sense of, I get it. I know how to do this. And there's an absence of humility in that. There's an arrogance in that. There's an immediate difference in that approach from the approach that's actually just kind of grounded and rooted in obstacle or challenge and curiosity, challenge and interest, obstacle and curiosity co-emerging in the same moment. And so the thought that I had the other day that rose out of that recognition was, this is what it means in the Christian tradition when they talk about everybody's a sinner. Because that used to drive me nuts. I used to be like, and it's the kind of thing that, like, I think it turns people off of Christianity, because it's like, well, why would I willingly subscribe to a philosophy or a religion or a belief system that says I'm a sinner, I'm an inherently bad person? That doesn't make any sense. It feels like the first thing we do is judge ourselves harshly, and then after that we beg for the opportunity to maybe perhaps be able to do the right sort of pious spiritual practice in order to be ultimately found worthy by some arbitrary fictional God. It's like, well, who would ever subscribe to that philosophy, that religion? But what I think it means when we say, when in the Christian tradition they say we are all sinners, it's that sense, it's that recognition. It's not saying everybody's a bad person, everybody is worthy of being judged. It's saying until the seeds of that false notion are truly dissolved, this idea that we get it. And this is what I was seeing arise in myself. I was seeing myself like feel I get it, and then be like, oh shit, that's not what you want to think. And so anyway, that's what was happening in myself, as I then also made this correlation or this connection to the way that this gets articulated in Christianity, which is we're all sinners. And I was like, oh, I think I understand that now, in a way that doesn't make it about judgment, in a way that doesn't make it about and a kind of inherent badness of all people, but in a way that still is really relevant, because that momentary, it can be subtle, it can be momentary, but it feels like that's what sin is. Like that's the best way I can define sin in the kind of like mystical sense, because we're not talking about like going out and doing horribly morally wrong things. Like nobody's that obviously, and I'm not saying that that's sin. I'm just saying those aren't the battles that I'm fighting right now, and that's not the battle that most people who are doing this kind of work are not fighting those battles. It's more like there's a subtle level on which we're coming into alignment with that humility and that place of total like dissolving into the space, and then we get a little taste of something, and then we think, okay, that's it, now I got it. And that's like, oh. And of course the next challenge, the universe perfectly designs the next challenge to make sure that thing that we got is no longer effective, and we're going to be like, oh, well, shit, what's this obstacle about? Until we allow it to provoke the curiosity that it's designed to provoke. So anyway, that was just where my mind went as I went from my own personal experience and then into this sort of like contemplation of the Christian tradition, and it tied in really, really beautifully with what Trungpa was saying today, and just the path of the warrior and the kind of essentially endless humility. Because at the end of the day, humility is not moral uprightness. Humility is not about, I'm humble because it's good to be humble. Humility is recognizing that we never actually have the golden ticket to the whole universe. Like there's no arrival point where it's like, look at me, guys, I got it, here it is. That never happens. We're always in relationship to an evolving, becoming universe. So the only possible relationship that keeps us in contact with reality is total humility, is total not knowing, knowing that we don't know. Doesn't mean we don't have a path. Doesn't mean we don't have a discipline. Doesn't mean we don't have a structure. Doesn't mean we don't have practice. Doesn't mean we don't have specific rituals and specific, you want to learn piano, you're going to go through a whole slew of really, really micro-oriented specific disciplines to learn very, very specific things. None of that is diminished or eradicated by saying we never know it all. All of that is simply part of what we absorb along the way, knowing that there's just kind of no arrival point. So this sort of like boundless humility is it's a relationship that we all inevitably end up having to the universe, because the universe is greater than we are. It's going to stay one step ahead of us. It's good at that. It's designed to do that. It's quite a powerful thing, this universe. It will not fail to be. It will not fail to offer us another stage in our evolution if we're up for it. So I'm kind of that's a composite of several things that have happened over the past day or two, but they've all kind of like were percolating today and coming together. And my God, every time I listen to Trungpa, I'm like blown away. So I thought I would share that. Thank you, folks. I appreciate you. Love you. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you soon.